Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Welcome everyone. Srimad Bhagavatam discussion. Thank you for coming. Chanting Jai Radha Madhav real quick. We'll get into the discussion as soon as we can. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajakacarya. Having grace Abhay Charanaramindra Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki Srimad Bhagavatam ki Nitai Gaur. Please repeat. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Nomagyanatimirandhasya Gyananjana Chakshushrunmalitani Tasmai Shri Gurave. So we are reading today from Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 19, Canto 8, chapter 19, I believe, am I right? Lord Vamandev begs charity from Bali Maharaj, and I believe we are going through texts 1 through 21. So we'll read the translations, I believe. Is that how it works? I don't even know how it works these days. We'll go through them really quickly as we can. Text 1, someone wants to go. We'll start with the summary. In this 19th chapter describes how Lord Vamandev asked for 3 paces of land in charity, how Bali Maharaj agreed to his proposal, and how Shukracharya forbade Bali Maharaj to fulfill Lord Vamandev's request. When Bali Maharaj, thinking Vamandev to be the son of a Brahmin, told him to ask for anything he liked, Lord Vamandev praised Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha and for their heroic activities, and after thus praising the family in which Bali Maharaj had been born, he begged the king for 3 paces of land. Bali Maharaj agreed to give this land in charity, since this was very insignificant. But Shukracharya, who could understand that Vamandev was Vishnu, the friend of the demigods, forbade Bali Maharaj to give this land. Shukracharya advised Bali Maharaj to withdraw his promise. He explained that in subduing others, in joking, in responding to danger, in acting for the welfare of others, and so on, one could refuse to fulfill one's promise, and there would be no fault. By this philosophy, Shukracharya tried to dissuade Bali Maharaj from giving land to Lord Vamandev. So that's the theme of the chapter. So let's go to the translation. Someone else is reading? What's going on?
Sukadeva Goswami continued. When the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vamanadev heard Bali Maharaj speaking in this pleasing way, he was very satisfied. For Bali Maharaj had spoken in terms of religious principles. Thus the Lord began to praise him.
Maybe he can read the whole thing.
Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O King, you are indeed exalted because of your present advisors are the Brahmanas who are descendants of Bhrigu, and because your instructor for your future life is your grandfather, the peaceful and venerable Prahlad Maharaj. Your statements are very true and they completely agree with religious etiquette. They are in keeping with the behavior of your family and they enhance your reputation.
Premchandra Prabhu, could we do me a favor and please give a seat to Prabhupada Priya Mataji? Oh, you have one. Okay. Sure.
I know that even until now, no one taking birth in your family has been poor-minded or miserly. No one has refused to give charity to Brahmanas, nor after promising to give charity has anyone failed to fulfill his promise. O King Bali, never in your dynasty has the low-minded king been born who upon being requested had refused charity to Brahmanas in holy places or a fight to Kshatriyas on a battlefield. And your dynasty is even more glorious due to the presence of Prahlad Maharaj, who is the beautiful moon in the sky.
Like the beautiful moon in the sky.
Text 5. It was in your dynasty that Hiranyaksha was born, carrying only his own club. He wandered the globe alone without assistance to conquer all directions, and no hero he met could rival him. Text 6. When delivering the earth from the Garbhodaksha sea, Lord Vishnu, in his incarnation as a boar, killed Hiranyaksha, who had appeared before him. The fight was severe, and the Lord killed Hiranyaksha with great difficulty. Later, as the Lord thought about the uncommon prowess of Hiranyaksha, he felt himself victorious indeed.
When Hiranyakashipu heard the news of his brothers being killed, with great anger he went to the residence of Vishnu, the killer of his brother, wanting to kill Lord Vishnu. Seeing Hiranyakashipu coming forward, bearing a trident in his hand like personified death, Lord Vishnu, the best of all mystics and the knower of the progress of time, thought as follows.
Wheresoever I go, Hiranyakashipu will follow me, as death follows all living entities. Therefore, it is better for me to enter the core of his heart, for then because of his power to see only externally, he will not see me. Lord Vamanadev continued, O king of the demons, after Lord Vishnu made this decision, he entered the body of his enemy Hiranyakashipu, who was running after him with great force in a subtle body inconceivable to Hiranyakashipu. Lord Vishnu, who was in great anxiety, entered Hiranyakashipu's nostril along with his breath.
So why was Krishna or Vishnu in great anxiety? Prabhupada explains there. Very nice. It's the story of Nrsimhadev, but apparently Vishnu first entered into the body of Hiranyakashipu because he was very compassionate. He was thinking, how can I help Hiranyakashipu? So he was in great anxiety. It was not that he's in anxiety for fear of Hiranyakashipu. Just side point.
Upon seeing that the residence of Lord Vishnu was vacant, Hiranyakashipu began searching for Lord Vishnu everywhere. Angry at not seeing him, Hiranyakashipu screamed loudly and searched the entire universe, including the surface of the earth, the higher planetary systems, all directions, and all the caves and oceans. But Hiranyakashipu, the greatest hero, did not see Vishnu anywhere. Unable to see him, Hiranyakashipu said, I have searched the entire universe, but I could not find Vishnu who has killed my brother. Therefore, he must certainly have gone to that place from which no one returns. In other words, he must now be dead.
Oh, okay, close. Okay. Hiranyakashipu's anger against Lord Vishnu persisted until his death. Other people in the bodily concept of life maintain anger only because of false ego and the great influence of ignorance. Your father, Virokana, the son of Maharaja Prahlada, was very affectionate towards Brahmanas, although he knew very well that he was the demigods who had come to him in the dress of Brahmanas. At their request, he delivered to them the duration of his life. You also have observed the principles followed by the great personalities who are householder Brahmanas, by your forefathers and by great heroes who are extremely famous for their exalted activities.
O King of the Deitas, from your majesty, who come from such a noble family and who are able to give charity munificently, I ask only 3 paces of land to the measurement of my steps. O King, controller of the entire universe, although you are very munificent and are able to give me as much land as I want, I do not want anything from you that is unnecessary. If a learned Brahmana takes charity from others only according to his needs, he does not become entangled in sinful activities.
Bali Maharaj said, O son of a Brahmana, your instructions are as good as those of learned and elderly persons. Nonetheless, you are a boy, and your intelligence is insufficient.
Thus you are not very prudent in regard to your self-interest. I am able to give you an entire island, because I am the proprietor of the 3 divisions of the universe. You have come to take something from me and have pleased me by your sweet words, but you are asking only 3 paces of land. Therefore, you are not very intelligent.
O small boy, one who approaches me to beg something should not have to ask any more anywhere. Therefore, if you wish, you may ask from me as much land as will suffice to maintain you according to your needs. The personality of Godhead said, O my dear king, even the entirety of whatever there may be within the 3 worlds to satisfy one's senses cannot satisfy a person whose senses are uncontrolled.
Right, so we'll chant this verse, if we can go to the Sanskrit. Please repeat. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Yavanto Vishaya Preshthas Lokyam Ajitendriyam Nashaknuvanti De Sarve Patipuryayitam Drabha. Please repeat. Bhagwan Vacha Yavando Vishaya Preshthas Vilokam Aditendriyam Nashaknuvanti Te Sarve Bhagavanu Vacha Yavanto Vishaya Preshthas Trilokyam Ajitendriyam Nashaknuvanti Te Sarve Pratipuryayitam Shri Bhagavan Vacha Yavanto Vishaya Preshthas Yamadivendriyam Nuvantite Sarve Patipuryayitam Drapa. Shri Bhagavan Vacha, Supreme Personality of Godhead said, Daha, as far as possible, Vishaya, the objects of sense enjoyment, Prishtha, pleasing to anyone, Lokyam, within these 3 worlds, Ajita Indriyam, a person who is not self-controlled, Na Shaknuvanti, are unable, they, all those, Sarve, taken together, Pratipuryayitam, to satisfy, Drapa, O King. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Abhay Charnaravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. The Personality of Godhead said, O my dear King, even the entirety of whatever there may be within the 3 worlds to satisfy one's senses cannot satisfy a person whose senses are uncontrolled. I'll let you chew on that for a second. Purport. The material world is an illusory energy to deviate the living entities from the path of self-realization. Anyone who is in this material world is extremely anxious to get more and more things for sense gratification. Actually, however, the purpose of life is not sense gratification, but self-realization. Therefore, those who are too addicted to sense gratification are advised to practice the mystic yoga system or Ashtanga yoga system consisting of yama, niyama, asana, pranayam, pratyahara, and so on. In this way, one can control the senses. The purpose of controlling the senses is to stop one's implication in the cycle of birth and death. As stated by Rishabdev, Nyunam pramatta kurute vikarma yatindriya prityato apranoti nasadhu manne yatatmanoyam asannapi kleshadasadeha. When a person considers sense gratification the aim of life, he certainly becomes mad after materialistic living and engages in all kinds of sinful activities. He does not know that due to his past misdeeds, he has already received a body which, although temporary, is the cause of his misery. Actually, the living entity should not have taken on a material body, but he has been awarded the material body for sense gratification. Therefore, I think it not befitting an intelligent man to involve himself again in the activities of sense gratification, by which he perpetually gets material bodies one after another. Bhagavatam, 5th canto, 5th chapter, 4th verse. Thus, according to Rishabdev, the human beings in this material world are just like madmen, engaged in activities which they should not perform, but which they do perform, only for sense gratification. Such activities are not good, because in this way one creates another body for his next life as punishment for his nefarious activities. And as soon as he gets another material body, he is put into repeated suffering in material existence. Therefore, the Vedic culture or Brahmanical culture teaches one how to be satisfied with possessing the minimum necessities in life. We'll discuss this for about 5 minutes, and then we'll go to the second part of this beautiful purport by Srila Prabhupada. The Bhagavad Gita is very clear about this particular concept. Tani sarvani samyamyam yukta asitamatpara. Yashyam vashayam yasya indriyani tasya pragya pratishtita. This whole concept of coming to the platform of spiritual understanding requires the foundational basis of disregarding sense gratification. What is sense gratification? It's an eternal question that I have posed myself as to what is gratifying the senses? And it's a very difficult question, at least for me, because it is the fundamental basis of everything that was really attractive, if I may, in Krishna consciousness. Yes. You forgot your purse if you're looking for that. So it was a fundamental basis of everything we were discussed, that we were taught when we first came to Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada's purports were very clear, or at least at that point of time, what we were reading in Srila Prabhupada's purports pointed very clearly in this direction. Yes, and since gratification was, in the same, I guess in the same chapter that Lord Rishabhdev is talking about this particular verse, that in madness, nyunam pramatha, madness, kurute vikarma, that one is performing vikarma. Yes, and we go back to what the different divisions of karma are, and we say, okay, vikarma, bad karma, it's not supposed to be performed. And Srila Prabhupada describes vikarma as something that is done without being conscious of Krishna. That is done outside of Krishna consciousness is vikarma. And it's like, okay, this is great. And what is outside of what is pleasing to Krishna? And we see that Krishna is pleased. Lord Rishabhdev is explaining, Nayam deha deho bhajam naraloke kashtana kaman arhati vidbhujame tapo divyam putra kaya na sattvam shuddhe desmad brahma saukyam dvanandam. Yes. So this whole idea of tapo divyam, austerity, to disregard sense gratification and to perform austerity. And austerity was very endearing, at least when we joined, right, in the 20s, and very extremely excited about this whole idea. And it was very necessary that at that point of time we come to a platform where the first thing was, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, Dharamade jibhati, the tongue is so very dangerous, so control the tongue, don't eat too much. Perform, fasting was exciting. It was not we were looking forward to the days when we would fast. Because it allowed us to completely, engross ourselves in doing what our authorities asked us to do at that point of time. And everyone fasted. It was a festival of austerity. It was not something that was difficult. And eating very less in general. And then, of course, following the regulative principles. And at that point of time, quite interestingly, quite, strict. We had Tamal Krishna Maharaj and his classes. This was in the early 2000s, before he left to help Srila Prabhupada. He was very direct in his expression of how one should perform or follow the regulative principles. I know when my wife came for the first time, of course she was not my wife, we didn't even know very well each other, but she had a little bit of short hair and it was not parted in the middle, and someone came and told her, hey, if you don't do this, you are a prostitute. Talking to girls, talking to boys was a no. It was not supposed to happen. Yes, especially if you're not married. If you're married, yes, for the purposes of services. If you're not married for the purposes of services, you can discuss there was very strict rules on how the regulative principles were followed, and I think that helped. It was important that we did that. The following of authority was in a very important aspect. It was probably the basis of everything that we did. There's no question of not following authority. No question of, we asked the question as to why certain things have to be done. But we really accepted those that had spent their entire lives in serving Srila Prabhupada, serving the Gurudev, serving the Malkrishna Goswami. And through their expression of serving Shri Radha Kalachandji. To try to approach Shri Radha Kalachandji was just not a question. To try to see, okay, I'm going to get initiated and second initiated and I'm going to serve the deities. We didn't even think about it. Because nowhere in the purports of Srila Prabhupada did we say that he did not put much importance to all of this. At least not, we weren't seeing it. What was important was perform austerity. And then we saw also that at some point of time we started becoming proud of performing these austerities, and so we really understood what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is trying to teach us. Yes, yes, be tolerant. Yes, when the senses are aggressive, be tolerant, but also perform that same austerity with humility. And what did humility mean? We didn't really know what humility meant. Yes, it's a constant question again. What is humility? And again, to the very fundamental, it came to the situation of accepting the words of the spiritual master, accepting the words of our authorities, and doing the best we can to help, irrespective of what we thought was right or wrong. And then as we progress, we realize, well, we can't just be blind followers, because that's not necessarily the way we were supposed to be doing things. And so questioning authority had to be done in a very, very humble, nice way. With the understanding that at the end of the day, finally, it is their word that was final. But the basis of it was, again, coming down to the platform of performing austerity, but now with the added layer of humility. And then as we progress, we realize that finally, however sense gratification, how much austerity we perform, finally it boiled down to how much detachment we had was completely dependent on how much attachment we have for Krishna. And that attachment for Krishna also had its roots in the following of authority. And following a culture, and kind of evolving through the following of austerity, following the religious principles, cleanliness, truthfulness, all of this falls under that same category. We realized that to please Krishna required us to be steeply, to understand very deeply what is the culture of Krishna consciousness. Yes. Whether it's the following of the regulative principles, whether it's the following of the authority, whether it's the following of the scriptures, whether it's our daily sadhana, whether it's the sadachar, how we interact with each other and the relationships, is all formed on the basis of the culture, the Vedic culture. And that culture resided in the heart, again, of the devotees. Culture is not something that is imposed on. You can't mandate humility. You can't mandate compassion. It naturally arises in the heart of those that are genuinely wanting to love and serve God. And if that doesn't happen, then following all these religious principles is purely a waste of time. Yes? What is that verse? Dharmasvanustita pumsha vishvakshena kathas. Notpade dadiratim shrama eva hi kevalam. It's purely a waste of time. All the whatever religious performance we do, anything that we do, it's purely a waste of time. Why? Because it does not, within our heart, awaken a genuine desire and love, vishvakshena kathas, to actually relish the beautiful names and pastimes of God. Yes, it is purely, and you see in this pastime, you're seeing all these different wonderful personalities. Hiranyaksha, Hiranyakashipu. They performed a lot of austerity. Yes. But they were still attracted to women. They're still attracted to gold. They're still attracted to power and control. They were still attracted to their own sense gratification, irrespective of performing austerity. So any kind of religious principles, specifically with respect to stopping the gratifying of the senses, has to be performed with the right intent. And that intent is defined by the culture that we live in. A very sweet culture, very deeply rooted in following the direction of the authorities. Mahajanayena gata sapanta. Finally, all religious principles are based not so much just direct word of the scriptures, very difficult to understand. So many different principles, but by seeing the examples and following the examples of the authority. Mahajanayena gata sapanta. And the difficulty that we see today in our lives is that's one thing we don't want to do. We don't want to follow authority. We don't want to even accept authority. We don't want to accept, one, that there is a need for self-realization. There's a need for us to understand God, because life is moving really fast. So we have this human form, and it's not going to last for very long. And before we know it, we get old and we lose control of those things that we thought we had complete control over. And then this opportunity to really take seriously our spiritual life is gone. And really it just flashes within our eyes, yes. Flashes, it's just gone. And where have we taken the opportunity to really understand what are the Mahajans teaching us? Whose authority should I follow? Yes. And we see that dilemma, if I may, when Bali Maharaj is then told by his spiritual master not to follow the orders of Vishnu. And we'll come to that in the second part of this class, so stay tuned. In the next couple of 3 days, we'll be discussing that. But authority is really within the heart of the culture of Krishna consciousness, of the Vedic culture, yes, which is then exemplified by the devotees. Yad yadacharati shreshtas tattadeva itarojana. Satat pramana kurate lokastad anuvartate. What do people follow? The Mahajans. Yes. So Bali Maharaj, or rather Lord Vamandev, who's addressed as Sri Bhagavan, is basically saying, I just need 3 steps of land Why do I need anything more? Yes. Now, if you were to approach someone really, really rich, would you just say 3 steps of land? So it's a very internal question that we have to ask ourselves. But that should be our motivation. That should be our goal, really. Within our heart, that's all we really need. Probably even less than that. There are so many cremations that we perform that we have seen, and effectively the body that we have is confined to a box about yay big. Yes, if you're cremated. Ashes. What is the use? That's what we will be, guaranteed, all of us in this room. Yes. So not much importance is given to the body. What is important is that by performing of austerity, performing of the religious principles, once one becomes self-realized and then understands God. So that was part 1. So let's read the second part. To teach this highest culture, Varnashram Dharma is recommended. The aim of the Varnashram divisions, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, Brahmacharya, Grahastha, Vanaprastha and Sannyas, is to train one to control the senses and be content with the bare necessities. Here Lord Vamandev, as an ideal brahmachari, refuses Bali Maharaj's offer to give him anything he might want. He says that without contentment, one cannot be happy even if he possessed the property of the entire world or the entire universe. I'll repeat that. He says that without contentment, one cannot be happy even if he possessed the property of the entire world or the entire universe. In human society, therefore, the Brahmanical culture, Kshatriya culture and Vaishya culture must be maintained, and people must be taught how to be satisfied with only what they need. In modern civilization, there is no such education. Everyone tries to possess more and more, and everyone is dissatisfied and unhappy. The Krishna consciousness movement is therefore establishing various farms, especially in America, to show how to be happy and content with minimum necessities of life and to save time for self-realization, which can very easily achieve by chanting, which one can very easily achieve by chanting the Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Athapumbir Dvajashreshta Varnashrama Vibhagasha Svanustitasya Dharmasya Samsiddhir Haritoshana. Yes. The Varnashram Dharma, or the Dharma of the Vedic culture, is extremely powerful. And we talked about the reason why we get to the formation of the foundation of the culture. Yes. Which is deeply rooted in understanding the authority of the Mahajans, or understanding the authority and the instructions of the previous acharyas and those that are guiding us on a day-to-day basis. And that culture, the Varnashram culture, then provides us engagement within Krishna consciousness, based on our propensity. And what our propensities are, will evolve based on the modes that we are attracted to. Sometimes we are in the mode of passion and we get administrative roles. We are in the mode of mixed mode of passion and ignorance, and we get, well, primarily mode of passion is Vaishyas, and then mode of passion and goodness, Kshatriyas, and then the mode of goodness is Brahmanas, and depending on the mode we get a certain engagement. We should be directed towards that engagement, but it has to be done in a way that samsiddhir haritoshanam, it is done for the pleasure of God, for the pleasure of Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada is emphasizing the forms. And it's very interesting that he's emphasizing the forms and the farm community, specifically because he says it saves time for performing the activities of spiritual life. And I know as a fact, as being part of a team that is trying to get a farm going, just a couple of hours from here, it's very difficult. But it's also very satisfying. This whole idea of contentment is very, very wonderful. When are we content with what we have? Yes, it's a very, very interesting dilemma. When are we content with what we have? As devotees, it's a very important question for us. When are we content? In one sense, for devotees, we should never be content. Should never be content in our services to Shri Shri Radha Kalachandji. On the other side, we should definitely be content with whatever comes our way. Instead of fighting our ways, trying to figure out how are we going to make our situation comfortable so that we can perform devotional service. Yes. A devotional service cannot be performed at the level of our own comfort. In fact, Krishna is going to make specific arrangements to take us out of the comfort zones if we don't ourselves take us out of the comfort zone. So whether it's the farm or whether it's the preaching, whether it's community outreach, whether it's performing festivals, whether it's doing whatever is necessary, it is important that we never forget that it is all meant to please Guru and Krishna. And without that, basically all these activities are just a waste of time. And the culture of Krishna consciousness emphasizes this as we go along. It is not that I have read all these books, I know all the histories, I know the Puranas properly. It is not that, now I'm performing sense gratification, I've stopped performing sense gratification, I'm performing so much austerity, which is absolutely necessary, but it is not the end goal. Effectively, finally, it boils down to, can I please Krishna? And we cannot please Krishna when we don't please the devotees of Krishna. It is just impossible. So in all our interactions, in everything that we do, it is very, very critical that we understand and we ask of those that have performed and have heard from their previous authorities. How should I execute Krishna consciousness? What should I do? How should I behave? How should I talk? How should I work? How should I serve? How should I eat? How should I sleep? These questions are very, very important. Arjuna asks these questions of Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, and Krishna answers very happily how these things are to be performed. And this also pleases the Vaishnava. It is not just it's not that this asking is a theoretical exercise. It is humbling ourselves, accepting that the Vaishnavas within their heart can understand our situation and guide us properly, so that we can understand how to progress in Krishna consciousness. And this is not just devotees that are senior to us necessarily. These are devotees who are really trying their best to be Krishna conscious, each other, by encouraging, by inspiring. Instead of trying to perform services, helping others perform their services, to help others be Krishna conscious. Even if it means that one's opportunity to do certain things personally for Krishna is minimized. Not showing off that look how much I can do. And of course I'm talking for myself. I'm not showing off how much I can do. But to actually see how removed can I be from a particular service so I can facilitate someone else doing that service. Not wanting to be in a position of authority, but rather wanting to be in a position of servitorship. Really pushing ourselves in that realm, because that is where the sweetness of Krishna's love is. Mercy flows at the lowest level, just like water. And as removed as we can be, the better it is for us. The better it is to properly execute Krishna consciousness. So I'm 4 minutes over. I'm going to stop here and see if there are any comments, if anyone is still awake. I'm pretty sure I put a lot of people to sleep. Any comments or questions before we stop? Shri Prabhupada ki jai. I guess the program continues.